Welcome to the Quantum Healing Oracle. My name is Pan, and today I wanted to make a video and just share a little bit about what makes my tarot readings different. When I first started reading tarot, I was going through a lot of emotional upheaval, a lot of challenges in relationships, and just in general life circumstances that felt like they were changing. And I was felt drawn to reading the cards to kind of give me some kind of insight and understanding as to like how to move forward, what was going to happen. And I realized that, a lot of looking at the tarot, you think what you want to see is the outcome of what's going to happen, how to predict the nature of our life circumstances as they're always changing here on Earth. And the more I read the tarot, the more I began to tap into my inner guidance and realize that it wasn't necessarily showing me the outcome of what was going to happen in my life. It was showing me energy patterns that were going to present themselves, and that I would engage with those energy patterns and I would reflect on how they made me feel or how they made me look at certain patterns and circumstances in my own life. And so the more and more that I read the tarot, I realized that it wasn't trying to show me the outcome of what was supposed to happen. It was just showing me the ways I could engage with those energy patterns when they began to arrive. And also in my development of consciousness, I began to understand the nature of what quantum consciousness is. And so for those that don't know, quantum physics is basically when they study very small particles, they see that those particles aren't just predictable. They don't show up and act the same way as in classical physics. They operate in what they call superposition, where they're a field of probability, where a particle can exist in multiple places at the same time until you observe it, and then it collapses into one position. And so what quantum physics shows is the relationship between the probable expressions of matter or of a particle, and when it actually does collapse, it chooses one of those probable positions until it actually shows up and becomes observed as a particle in one position. And so what I found is that consciousness functions very much the same way, is that we exist as a field of probability. Nothing is really determined or set in stone. And even though it does seem like we live on this linear trajectory from the past and we move forward into the future, really we've been moving through a series of potentials that collapse every moment that we observe them and every moment that we live them. And if you can imagine even just waking up tomorrow, all the different probable paths that you have available to you, but you won't experience that until you take the choice, you make the choice to collapse all those probabilities into one particular probability at a time. And that's why we experience linearity, because it's one event after another, but we're actually collapsing those events from probable fields, probability fields, and choosing which one we want to experience. And so when I made this connection between quantum consciousness and my understanding of how I was learning to read tarot, I've developed the system now where I consider myself a quantum oracle, which is I'm not here to just try to offer what's going to happen in the future or predict outcomes. I'm here to show the probable ways of relating with energy patterns so that you can choose which potential circumstance or potential situation that you want to collapse and experience in your life. And the reason why I feel this is more beneficial than maybe classical tarot, and don't get me wrong, I don't knock people who read tarot in the classical way of predicting outcomes. I still follow many very talented and amazing tarot readers. And I feel like every tarot reader kind of has their own place, their own position of what they do, and they can specialize in that and bring that forward. And I'll just use a loose example on, let's say that you're doing a love reading, and from the classical tarot interpretation, a tarot reader might interpret and say, oh, look, you have a partner coming in your future. Okay. And that would be one way of trying to determine the outcome of the circumstance. And if I were doing a love reading, what I would reflect back is how can you position yourself in relationship with love itself and the connection to yourself, and step into a frequency where you're open to receiving all the relationships that are meant to benefit you at any given time. Because ultimately what I found is that it doesn't matter so much the outcome. What matters is the frequency that you're engaging in that ends up just showing up as the outcome. So for me, it's actually not as important that you have a partner coming into your life, or that you experience love coming into your life from that perspective, as it is that you connect with the love that's available now, and you recognize where the potential to share that love may be, whether it be with a partner or without a partner. But in the way that I feel guided to read, it's always an encouragement to shift into your most authentic self, your most empowered self, your most connected self, so that you can receive whatever outcomes actually do arrive. Because my feeling is that if you're in alignment with yourself and you're resonating in a strong core frequency of your own vibration, it actually doesn't matter what outcome shows up. Because when you're really feeling at home and connected with yourself, you will happily engage whatever outcome that the universe shows up to reflect back to you. And that's, to me, what quantum consciousness has taught me, is that life's changing circumstances are always giving me the opportunity to shift into my own core frequency, shift into the highest vibration that I have available, given the current circumstances, given the current energy. Because when I shift into an aligned frequency, then I can trust that whatever shows up next is going to reflect that alignment. And to me, that's what makes me feel the most guided and the most centered and the most open to receiving from life. Because ultimately, it's that feeling of being connected to your soul, being connected to yourself, and feeling guided as you make choices that is what we actually have control over in our lives. As long as we're still attaching to external circumstances, it's too easy to go into emotional highs when everything's going the way you want, and going into emotional lows when everything is not going the way you want. And that's kind of the emotional roller coaster that a lot of humanity is on, because they're still attaching themselves too much to the outcomes and their ideas about who they think they are as they determine what that outcome means. Whereas from a quantum perspective, I can open up the field of probabilities and say whatever probable energy may be presenting itself, you always have the opportunity to connect to yourself, connect to joy, and shift into a frequency and have a positive experience. And so for me, it's been more empowering to understand how to work with those reflections and feel like I'm in control of always shifting my frequency and staying in a positive state, and always being open to receive all the things that come, whether I like them or not. Like, I formed some really interesting relationships with cards like the Nine of Swords, because even though that classically has a negative connotation, for me, it's come up in very crucial points in my life where I've been able to see that what I was attaching to, the idea of what I thought I wanted, was not actually what was best for me. And so when that card comes up, it kind of reflects to me to take a look at that. And then I can always kind of humble myself and let go of what I think that I want, and know that what's actually meant for me will never pass me by. So that's, in a sense, the kind of the basic idea of what it is that I'm doing with this channel, is that I read into the collective energies of whatever may be present, and I try to offer reflections of how to align with your authentic self, shift into your highest frequency by using perspectives that are available through the circumstances that life presents you with. And so that if you know you're always in charge of shifting into a higher frequency, aligning with yourself, and staying in a positive state no matter what happens, then my belief is you always get back from life what you put into it. And if you always put a positive meaning and a positive energy into every situation, there's no other result other than to get a positive result back from it. Even if it's not what you thought you wanted, it doesn't matter, because staying in that positive state fulfills what used to be the idea of trying to figure out what was going to happen and how we would try to get what we thought we wanted to be happy. Whereas we can realize we actually have the opportunity to experience joy and feel empowered every moment. And then that starts to shift the whole paradigm on personal responsibility and how much we can actually enjoy our lives as it unfolds, trusting that from that frequency that we're aligned with, anything that's showing up is exactly what we need to give us the opportunity to shift into the next highest frequency, and the game keeps rolling on. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me on this channel, and we'll see you next time.